At our engagement party, she removed the ring and gave it to him, saying, "This fits better. Do you know what it feels like to watch the moment your entire life plan crumbles in front of everyone you know? To stand there, surrounded by family and friends, people cheering for you, clinking glasses, cameras flashing, and then hear the woman you thought you'd marry announce with a smile that your ring belongs on another man's finger." If humiliation had a sound, it was the gasp that fell over that room when she said those words. I can still feel the weight of that moment pressing down on me. I can still hear her voice, steady, playful, like it was a joke, except it wasn't. I can still see his smirk, the way he leaned back in his chair, as if he'd won something he had been quietly fighting for. And I can still see the faces around us. My mother's eyes widening, my father's jaw tightening, her friends covering their mouths, not knowing whether to laugh or scream. It was supposed to be the happiest night of our lives. We'd rented a hall, decorated it with flowers and string lights, played the playlist we'd made together on a lazy Sunday afternoon. Everyone was there. My family, her family, co-workers, childhood friends, people I hadn't seen in years, had flown in to raise a glass to tell stories about our childhoods, to toast to our future. The night had been going perfectly. She looked radiant, glowing in her dress, her hair pulled back, the engagement ring sparkling under the lights, as she raised her glass during speeches. I remember standing beside her, hand on her back, thinking, this is it. This is the start of everything. And then she said it. It happened during a lull in the night. The speeches had ended, the music had softened, people were mingling. She was laughing with friends at the table, her hand playing with the ring. At first I thought nothing of it. She had a habit of twirling it when she was nervous, but then she glanced across the table at him. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't some random guy who snuck into the party. He was a friend of hers. At least, that's what she always called him. Just a friend. The kind of friend she texted late at night. The kind of friend she always defended when I asked questions. The kind of friend she insisted on inviting to our engagement party. She slipped the ring off her finger, looked at him with that mischievous smile I used to think was mine alone, and said, "This fits better." Then she leaned forward, took his hand, and slid the ring onto his finger. Laughter bubbled from some corners of the room, awkward and confused, as if they thought it was a joke. But it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. The way her eyes lingered on him, the way his lips curled into a grin, the way her voice carried. She meant it. She wasn't making a joke. She was making a statement. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. For a moment I couldn't move. It felt like the floor had given way beneath me, like the world was tilting and everyone else was standing steady while I fell. I looked around the room. Some people laughed nervously, raising their glasses. Others whispered, shifting uncomfortably. My parents looked horrified. His wife, yes, his wife, stared at her hand as if deciding whether to throw her drink in his face or mine. And me. I stood there, frozen, my fiancé's betrayal blazing in the spotlight, the ring I had chosen, saved for, knelt down with, now sitting proudly on another man's hand. Do you know what betrayal feels like in a crowd? It doesn't scream. It doesn't burn. It suffocates. It presses on your chest until you can't breathe. It grips your throat until you can't speak. You want to shout, to demand answers, to claw the ring back. But you can't, because your body betrays you just like she did. I don't even remember how the party ended. I remember drinks spilling, whispers buzzing, like bees, her friends pulling her aside, my cousins pulling me outside for air. I remember his smug face across the room, the way he twirled the ring on his finger like it was some prize. I remember her laughter, light and sharp, as if the whole thing was nothing more than fun. When the night ended, I didn't confront her. Not yet. She stumbled into the car, tipsy, giggling, saying, "You're so quiet tonight. What's wrong?" I stared at the windshield, the streetlights flashing across my vision, and said nothing, because if I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure what would come out. Back home, she collapsed into bed, humming, still laughing to herself. I sat in the living room, lights off, staring at my hands. The ring had been more than jewelry. It had been a promise, and she had stripped it from me in front of everyone, given it to another man like it belonged to him all along. I should have confronted her. I should have shouted, demanded answers, thrown her out, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there in the dark and made a decision. If she thought she could humiliate me in public, I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break in private. If she wanted to play games, I would play them better. If she wanted to test how much I could endure, She was about to learn I wasn't the fool she thought I was. So I started watching. Carefully. Quietly. Over the next days, I noticed things I'd ignored before. Her phone, always tilted away from me. The late nights at work. The excuses about seeing friends who never seemed to know she'd been with them. And him, the way his name kept popping up. The way his shadow loomed over our conversations. I checked the bank accounts. I checked her emails. I checked every corner of her digital world I could access. And what I found confirmed what my gut already knew. The engagement party wasn't a one-time slip. It wasn't a drunken mistake. It was the tip of an iceberg. Messages, hidden under fake names, receipts from dinners, hotel booking, all pointing to the same truth. She had been feeding him pieces of our life for months, maybe longer. The ring wasn't just a stunt. It was a declaration. She wasn't mine anymore. She had already given herself to him. And yet, I didn't leave. Not yet. Because I realized something. If I left now, she would twist the story. She would cry, spin lies, play victim. No one would know what really happened. She would walk away unscathed, her reputation intact, maybe even painting me as the villain. But if I waited, if I gathered enough, if I planned it carefully, I could do what she did to me. Expose her, not in whispers, not in private arguments, but in the same way she exposed me, publicly, undeniably, without escape. She thought sliding that ring onto his finger was clever. She thought she'd humiliated me beyond repair. But what she really did was give me the perfect reason to be patient, the perfect fire to sharpen my resolve, the perfect excuse to build a plan that would shatter her world the way she shattered mine. And I promised myself this: the next time a crowd gathered to celebrate, the spotlight wouldn't be on her love story, it would be on her lie. When I tell you that the days after that engagement party were some of the longest of my life, I'm not exaggerating. Imagine waking up next to someone whose betrayal still echoes in your ears, whose laughter at your expense still plays in your head like a bad song on repeat. Every morning she acted as if nothing had happened. She made coffee, hummed in the kitchen, scrolled her phone. She even kissed me on the cheek once, light and casual, as if she hadn't just slid the most important symbol of our relationship onto another man's hand in front of everyone. But here's the truth. Her act wasn't convincing anymore. Not to me. The party stripped away whatever veil I'd been holding onto. When I looked at her now, all I saw was calculation, arrogance, and a dangerous kind of carelessness. She thought she had me cornered, too humiliated to fight back, too in love to walk away. And maybe once upon a time that would have been true. But that night at the party didn't break me. It clarified me. It gave me something sharper than pain: purpose. I kept my silence, but behind that silence I started weaving my own net. First, I began by gathering proof. The engagement party was a spectacle, but spectacle fades. People whisper, rumors twist, and eventually sympathy drifts toward the one who cries louder. I couldn't let that happen. I needed evidence so irrefutable that even her tears couldn't drown it out. She wasn't careful. Not really. She thought her games were invisible because I'd been blind before. But now that my eyes were open, every move of hers left a trail. I started with her phone. Her passwords weren't as secure as she thought. Late-night texts under fake names that read more like confessions. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was perfect. The ring looked good on you. The kind of messages that burned to read but also fueled me with every syllable. Then the financial records. She had a joint card and suddenly errands started to look like dinners, hotels, gifts. I cross-checked dates, matched them with excuses. It all lined up. When she said she was visiting her mother, she was paying for champagne with him. When she said she was late at work, she was checking into a hotel. And then there were the photos. The ones people think they hide but never really did. Buried in folders, in cloud backups, in messages. Pictures of them together. Him in the very suit she'd once told me was a friend's recommendation. Her wearing a necklace I didn't buy. Their smiles weren't guilty. They were triumphant, like they thought they were getting away with something brilliant. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Every instinct screamed at me to explode, to slam the evidence on the table and demand answers. But explosions only make noise. They don't leave scars. I wanted scars. The kind that last. Weeks turned into months. I played the part. Supportive fiancé. Quiet. Maybe a little distant, but present. She bought the act. thinking I was still licking my wounds from the engagement party, too spineless to walk away. She even grew bolder. Nights out became more frequent. Excuses lazier. She slipped further into arrogance, and the further she slipped, the stronger I became. I knew I'd need the right moment. Exposure means nothing if the timing isn't perfect. The engagement party was her stage. I needed mine. And then it came. Our wedding shower. A smaller event. Sure. But one packed with both families, friends, people from her work, people from mine. Another celebration. Another spotlight. Another opportunity she thought would be hers. The irony was suffocating. She spent weeks planning it, picking decorations, choosing the menu, obsessing over the guest list. I watched her pour her energy into creating the perfect party, never realizing she was building the stage for her own downfall. Every time she asked my opinion on flowers or music, I bit back a smile. If only she knew I wasn't focused on table settings. I was focused on the folder of evidence I'd bring tucked under my arm. The night of the shower arrived. The hall was decorated beautifully, soft lights glowing, tables lined with food, laughter filling the air. She looked radiant, of course. She always did when she wanted attention. She floated through the room like the star of the show, her ring back on her finger now, flashing it proudly as if nothing had ever happened. She was magnetic, charming, laughing too loudly, touching arms, making sure all eyes were on her. And me, I stayed quiet. I smiled. I mingled. I shook hands. But inside I was calm in a way I hadn't been in months, because I knew what was coming. I knew that by the end of the night, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything she thought she'd gained. When it came time for speeches, the chatter softened, glasses raised. People smiled, expecting sweet words about love, about the journey ahead, about how lucky I felt. She beamed at me, her eyes shining, as if daring me to perform. I stood, my glass in hand, and cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady, measured. "It means the world to have our families and friends here to celebrate what should be the beginning of a lifetime of honesty, loyalty and love." Polite applause. "No." She tilted her head at me, that same sweet smile plastered on her face. And in the spirit of honesty, I continued, pulling the folder from my jacket. "There are some truths that need to be shared." The room shifted, confusion spread. She froze, her smile flickering for the first time. I opened the folder and held up the first photo, her hand sliding my ring onto his finger at the engagement party. Gasps filled the room. "You all remember this moment," I said, my voice loud enough to cut through the whispers. "Some of you laughed. Some of you thought it was a joke, but it wasn't." I laid the photo on the table. Then another. Screenshots of texts, receipts, hotel confirmations. One by one, I laid them out like cards in a game, each piece heavier than the last. These are the nights she told me she was working late. These are the dinners she said were with friends. These are the messages she sent, the lies she told, the evidence of every vow she broke before she even had the chance to make them. The room was silent, save for the rustle of papers. Her face went pale, her eyes darting desperately, her mouth opening but no words coming out. She looked at me, pleading silently, but I wasn't her shield anymore. I looked around the room. This is the woman I was supposed to marry. This is the woman who stood beside me and smiled while planning a life with him. I pointed to the man sitting 2 tables back, her so-called friend, now sinking into his chair as every eye turned on him. She burst into tears then, real tears, not the performative kind. She stumbled forward, her voice breaking. "Please, please, not like this. We can fix it." I cut her off. "Not like this. You humiliated me in front of everyone at our engagement party. You thought it was clever. You thought it was funny. Tonight, I'm simply returning the favor. I'm doing it with truth." Her sobs filled the silence. Some guests looked away, uncomfortable. Others shook their heads, muttering. My family sat rigid, my mother's eyes wet with anger, my father's fists clenched. His wife, yes, he was married, stood up slowly, her face a storm. She walked across the room, took off her own ring, and dropped it onto his lap, with a sharp clang. Then she left. The room erupted. Whispers, gasps, chairs scraping. I gathered the papers back into the folder, set it down, and raised my glass. Here's to honesty, I said simply. Then I drank, placed the glass down, and walked out. The fallout was swift. By morning, everyone knew. Word spread through family, friends, co-workers. She called me endlessly, her voicemails swinging between apologies, rage and begging. I didn't answer. He tried reaching out once, some pathetic attempt to explain, but I blocked him. His wife filed for divorce. Her family turned on her. Friends distanced themselves. The empire of lies they thought was unshakable crumbled in days. And me, I walked away, lighter than I'd felt in months. The silence of my apartment was heavy at first, but it was clean, honest. No more pretending, no more lies whispered at midnight. Sometimes I think back to the engagement party, to the moment she slipped the ring off her finger and onto his. I remember the sting, the humiliation, the fire it lit in my chest, and then I think of the wedding shower, of the silence after I laid out every piece of proof, of the way her mask fell apart in front of everyone. She thought the ring fit him better. Turns out it fit perfectly, because it revealed the truth of who she was, and it freed me from ever making the mistake of putting it back on her hand again.